Welcome all to the weekly outlook. Boone here from EWPRO. Getting straight into the weekly outlook, looking at DXY on the daily. We got this WXY. I was looking for an X2 and a Z down, but this is still a wave Y. We'll be looking for an X2 and then a Z down. So we're really waiting for that larger correction. On the H4, we got this A, B, C in here, getting an A, B, C down. There was a little flag in there you could have sold. You may be getting another little flag in here. You could look for sells on the H1. Like I said last week, you can only sell this. AU on the daily. So we got this WXY. Still may get an X2 here. We do have that bear hidden. This is the invalidation point for that bear hidden. So we still may get a wave Z down in here. Looking at the other majors, we have broken out. But in saying that, AU is a little bit different. Doesn't correlate with the other pairs. So, you know, H4, I'm looking at this. We got those 5 up in here. I'm looking at an A, a B. I'm looking for a C down and then more upside. Like I said last week, you know, we want a larger correction than these, and this is looking like a B wave up in here. So I'll be looking for a C down and then more upside. So if you got a sell on it, you could scalp the sell for this H4C down, and then you'd be looking for the buy. On the H1, we are getting a lot of bearish divergence. This may be a expanding flat in here, so you'd have to go down onto the lower time frames and wait for this wave in here to be over, and then a sell set up, you know, for your sell. For the buy, it is quite risky to buy up the top here, but it may go on you, so you may consider it. EU on the daily. So this top here has been broken. Now, so we're looking for that WX extended wave Y, possible X2 and a Z down. Now, I'm really only expecting a correction, a daily correction and more upside. There still is a chance that we get that Z down, but we can really only look for the buys now. On the daily, you know, we'll be looking for a correction and then more upside, rather than you could look for a sell in here but fell over and just for a C down, and it may go and give you a wave Z down, but we'll have to see what happens in here. On the H4, we got that wave Z up. Got WXY, X2, we're getting that Z up. It hadn't quite got to the second target, that 161.8 that I showed you last week. Now on the H1, I mean, again, this may be a little flat in here. you may get a little bit more upside. Yeah, you can scalp these. They're more of a scalp. Get them to break even and take half off, and then if you want to hold it longer term, if you think it's going to reverse, well, then you could just hold it the second half. GU on the daily. This is very similar. We got that break taking out the bear hidden, possible bear hidden for that Z down. So we're really only looking for a correction on the daily and then more upside. H4, nothing's really changed since last week. Looking for this buy in here. It's, if I zoom in again, zoom in a little bit. So we broke out of the trend line. We got a little correction in here. It stayed above the trend line. It's very slow to go. But yeah, we're targeting those, like I said last week, we're targeting that 161.8 and the 123.6 as your first and second target. On the H1, it's getting very messy with that news. We come out, you know, spike down, spike up, spike down. You know, it's still around here, right? Still looking rather bullish. To invalidate this as like an A, B, C, we really need, for the sell, you'd need a break below this low here, and then a sell setup to sell. Other than that, you really can only buy it. You could put a buy stop just above the top there, or go down onto the lower time frames and look for a buy setup. It's very messy and slow, but yeah. NU on the daily. So we got that A, B, C down. We're just looking for a correction in here and then more upside on the daily, pretty much like the other crosses. On the H4, like I mentioned last week, we're looking for that wave Z up. It's very similar to GU. It's broken out of this in here and it's just playing around in here. More than likely it will go. It's just a slow start. On the H1, we have broken that top. So there's a couple of different scenarios, and this goes for the others as well. The GU, we can get an A, B, C up in here, and then we get an A, B, C as a larger correction before we get the A, B, C. So these may turn more complex. And it definitely is possible, because this is looking corrective in here as an A, B, C. So we get three up and then we get that A, B, C as a running or expanding flat. So this correction may not be over yet either. But any buy setup I get, I'll be looking for the buy. I'll be taking all the buy setups I get until I get the one that goes. UI on the daily. So we're not going to get that way as a wave Z up. This correction, I think there is a little bit more time in it, time factor. But yeah, it's starting to get slimmer and slimmer. We broke this low here for the possible bull hidden. So now I'll just be looking for a correction, daily correction, and then more downside. Wherever this wave ends, we don't know where this wave ends at this stage on this time frame. On the H4, like I said last week, we're pretty much looking at swing points now. I can't really go into it. If you want to learn about how I look at swing points and how I use it, you really need to join the course. You won't see this stuff anywhere else. So yeah, we're just looking at swing points like I mentioned last week for our entry. We are starting to get a lot of bullish divergence, so it's very risky to be selling down here on this time frame. On the H1, you can see that we still may get another one down. If you're looking for a wave Z, you wait for this wave to be over, and then a 38.2 fib retracement or 50 fib retracement, and then look for that Z down, and then you'll be looking for the buy. The Swissy on the daily. So like I mentioned last week on the daily, this correction here and this correction here are of a similar size now in time. So we really need this. If this is going to give us that Z up, it really needs to go very soon. If it doesn't and just keeps on dribbling down here for a while, well, then we'll be just looking for a correction and then more downside. But at this stage, we still can look for buys for that wave Z up. On the H4, you can see here, I was looking for an A, B, C. It never got up to that 100 fib, like I mentioned. And then we get like an A, B, C. It's very choppy. We're getting a lot of bullish divergence. Yeah. On the H1, the sell is risky. There is a sell in here, there is a sell in there. If you're in that trade, you'd be at, you still have your stop loss just above this top or above this top, wherever you put it. For a sell, more than likely this will go down and break that low. But if you're in this sell, keep your stop loss there. Definitely move it to break even when that low is broken, and then you'd be looking for the buy after this H4 wave C is over. It's getting very choppy down the low here, so it's coming to an end before we get a larger correction or a continuation. The CAD on the daily. Like I've mentioned, there's two scenarios here. We get that WXY, X2 and a Z up as an extended wave Y for the WXY, and then get a larger correction like this, and then we get a Z up. Or we just get three waves up in here and we get this larger correction over here, and then we get that Z up, this Z up here. On the H4, it's becoming quite difficult because we got that WXY. I was looking for an X2 and then a Z down. Like I said at this stage here, it has to go from here for the Z down. It's given a larger correction. So I'll be looking at it as like an A, B, and a C up, for possibly more downside, unless this really takes off and becomes motive. This is still looking rather corrective. It's very choppy. It's not really nice price action or structures. On the H1, we got that bullish divergence. If you went down, if you were looking for the buy, you'd want to be buying it in here, on the lower time frames. We got bullish divergence, impulse up. You'd be looking for correction on the lower time frames and a buy set up to buy. If it's going to go, it'll go from here. For the sell, you really need to wait for a larger correction for the sell. We got that bullish divergence, so it becomes risky to sell. In saying that, this may be like an A, 1, 2, 3, and then we get like an A, B, C, before we get more downside, like for a W, X, Y, X2, and then a Z down. But if you got that buy in here on the lower time frames, I'd be looking to buy that, and just move it to break even at the break of this top, and just take half off, around this 100 bib here. Well, more than likely it'll be expanding black, because this is very corrective here, and we were looking for that sell. Yeah, I'd be taking half off, definitely moving it to break even at this top here, and then just take half off when you start to see it reverse, and then just let the rest run in case it does play out on the daily. This GY on the daily, like I've mentioned, we got the 5 up, A, B, C, and we went up and broke the top. Now we've got this like WX, we're in a wave Y. I was looking for that X2 and then a possible Z down. It may go and break that low. And we'll have to see. This is starting to get very deep. So on the H4, still looking for downside. We were looking for downside last week, but just for an A, B, C, and then another one up in here to give us a correction a similar size to this as a W, X, Y, X2, and then a Z down. It's gone and fallen over. So if you did take that, you're doing well out of it, if you're still in it. If this does come down and break this low, I dare say we will get bullish divergence. If you get a flag in here, you can look for the sell just as a scalp more than anything. And then if you got the buy set up, or you could look for the buy just for an A, B, C. Just go and break that top, because this is such a deep correction now of this. So we did have that possible bear hidden. Looks like that's going to play out and go and break that low. Overall, we will start to get bullish divergence. So yeah, starts to become risky to sell. Did that break that low? It hasn't quite broken the low. So if you get a little bearish flag, you could look for it just to go and break that low. It's really only scalping. And then we'll be looking for the larger correction. EG on the daily. So like I mentioned last week, it's two scenarios here. This can be an expanding flat here for an A, B, C, or this is the C down in here. We can really only buy it. We got a high. On the daily, we can really only buy it. And until we get a sell set up on the lower time frames, if you're looking for this expanding flat, for it to go and break this low over here. We're getting that wave Z up on the H4. It hadn't quite got to the first target, that 123.6. It still may yet. If we go down to the lower time frames, see we have a ball hidden in here. So we're looking at it like an A, B. More than likely we may get a C up in here. So if we got a buy set up on the lower time frames, you could look for it, and you'd be targeting that 123.6. Sorry, the 161.8. You'd be moving to break even at the break of that top. Gold. We'll go to the weekly, because we've got this correction of a similar size, and we're looking for that wave Z up. So this may get up to the 123.6, and your second target is at 161.8. On the H1, like I've been mentioning, we really want to see a correction before we jump in. To buy at a high here does become risky. H4, we got that W, very deep correction in X, wave Y, X2, and we're getting an extended wave Z. It's breached both the targets. We're getting a lot of bearish divergence. On the H1, we're starting to get bearish divergence as well. So you're very risky to be buying until we get the larger correction. You'd be scalping on the lower time frames. If you're buying for the sell, you'd want to come down, break that low, then give you a sell setup, and then you could look for a sell for at least an A, B, C. Silver on the daily. So like I mentioned last week, I'm looking at this as a correction. Well, if I just go to the weekly. So this is what we're looking at on the higher time frames. So we got a nice impulse up, looking for a correction. We're looking for a wave Y or A. It may just turn into an ABC, A, B, C, get up to the 100 pip, or it may extend. Then we'll be looking for X2 and a Z up. So we're looking for upside. It's right at this trend line here. So we're at a critical point. On the daily, like I said last week, I'm looking at this as a complex correction. We get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we got 5 down in here as a 335 complex correction. We haven't broken this top, and we haven't broken out. But yeah, it's been difficult to trade. it's very choppy. We do have a lot of bearish divergence forming. So buy, becomes risky. So I'm looking at the WXY, looking for an X2 and then a Z up. If we go down to the H1, so there's a few different ways we could look at it as an A, B, C, and we get another one up here, but this is looking choppy in here. So be looking for an A, a B, a C, something for us to get in on before you look for the buy setup. Really like to see this come down, break that low, give us bullish divergence in here, and then give us a buy setup, just to be safer than buying at a top. This can be an A, B, and we're getting a C up in here. Yeah, you could look for a sell as well if you're scalping, just to go and break that low before you start looking for the buy again. WTI on the daily. So we're still waiting for looking at a WXY, A, B, C, need a nice impulse up to that 100 pip there, and then we may get a possible Z down, and we get a flat in here, running flat. On the H4, we got that C down, A, B, C, looking at an A, B, may get a break of that top, and then a C as a running or expanding flat before we get an A, B, C. Yeah, so on the H1, we still haven't, this either way, if you look at A, this is a very deep correction. If it goes and breaks the top, more than likely we'll get a running or expanding flat. But for the buy, really want to see one down in here to give us a running or expanding flat, or a regular flat if it just goes from here and just breaks that low. We'll be looking for any buy setup. For the sell, you'd have to go down onto the lower time frames. Looks like we got some sort of an A, B, a WXY. You probably get an X2, and you could trade a Z up. Once you start to get this correction, you could look at the time factors and then start to look for your buy setup. For the sell, you're just scalping really. Bitcoin on the daily. Last week, we got this A, B, C. This was still looking bearish last week. And I said, we can't really start to buy until that top there has been broken. Well, that top there is now just about being broken. So we can start to look for buys now. It was way too risky to buy last week. Just looking for this to go and break that low, for an A, B, C, and we get an A, B, C, just breaking that low. It didn't go and break that low, and instead it's turned rather motive. Well, it is motive. This structure is definitely motive with the impulse that we've got. At this stage, we got that WXY why it's up to that 161.8 and may get even up to that 200 fib. But then you'll be waiting for this X2 over here. And then you could look for the wave Z up. You could scalp flags. I wouldn't be scalping flags. I'd be waiting for at least a correction on the H1 before you started to look for buys again. You've missed the trade before the buy. If you've missed that, the buy, it's very flat. Very risky to buy. Was a nice little one over there I seen during the week. But yeah, I'll just be leaving it alone until we get a larger correction. S&P on the daily. So we got those 5 down. This is looking rather corrective, and then we've got an A, possibly B, and a C as some sort of running or expanding flat, possibly, and before we get more upside. Sort of in a large correction, we got that wave set up on the H4. So really now I'm looking at that as an A, a B. It's starting to get rather deep, so we may just get a regular flat unless it does go and break that top, then it'd be running or expanding flat. Really want to see this wave C down after the 5 up. Like I said last week, we want to see a larger correction than this, and we're getting that. If we get this wave C down, then we could start to look for buy setups over here instead of buying it at the top in a B wave. On the H1, sort of got a flat in here. It's gone and broken the top. We're getting a lot of bearish divergence. Really becomes very risky to buy. I'd be more interested in waiting for all this to be over, wherever this ends, then looking for a sell setup for the C down on the H4, rather than buying at the top here when we got all this bearish divergence. It becomes very risky. AU200, like I said last week, this is looking much better than the S&P and the other indices. This is looking rather nice last week. So we got that. Well, we got those 5 down. We got a break of that top there. I was looking for a 50 fib retrace. Price come back, bounced off that 50 fib. On the H4, we got those 3 up. We got a last week, I believe we were in here somewhere. And we were looking for that buy. It may have been here. I can't remember exactly, but we're only looking for the buy. It was giving a setup on the lower time frames to buy. So I hope some of you's got in on it. And yeah, it's going. Now you really got to wait for a larger correction before you jump in if you're not already in it. The DAX, this is it's like I said last week, this may turn into an expanding flat, or this is just an A, B, some sort of a B and a C down, and that's over and we go and break the top. the structure's not really clear on the daily. The H4, we're looking for a sell. Would have been looking for a sell in here. It's just gone up and broken the top. So it's become very difficult to trade. Yeah, there's really not much you can do on it. Last week we were looking for a correction, or this buy in here if you didn't get in it. Still really waiting for that wave X2 before you look for the buy. Whenever we get this X2, well, then you could start to look for your buy setups for a wave setup. I think the FTSE was very similar on all the time frames. This one has gone and broken the top though, so it's possible that the DAX will as well, like this. This still can be like an A, B, C, and we still get an A, B, C as a running or expanding flat. Still possible. Really, yeah, it's a buy up here. It's getting risky. We're looking for a buy here. We bounced off that 100 pip, off the daily 100 pip. And we're looking for a sell setup, but this was still looking rather corrective. If we go down to the H1, it's very similar to the DAX. We're really waiting for a retracement, back to the 38.2 or 50 pip of this wave here, wherever this ends. Wait for your X2 and then look to trade that wave set up. That's the safest way to get in it, rather than risking flags. I hope you enjoyed the weekly outlook. If you did, please hit the like button, spread the word. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you out there next week.